Hello everybody, it's Clint. Welcome to Sweetcast. I just got my 2 copies of Mary Sue. This was by George Alexopoulos, and I'm going to do not a review. I really just want to talk about the printing and a few of my thoughts on this purchase. Now, before we go any further, I need to explain that I am biased in this. Just like every single crowdfunding project, it seems like that I do. I generally know a creator that has made it to some degree or another. I promoted this book to help it get funded, and I'll say George and I currently are not on great terms. Okay, one more thing I gotta say too is that I do not back books unless I really want the book. I have a lot of people on my channel to promote their comics. When they come on, I do my best to promote it. I've never claimed to be a great salesman, but I do my best to promote it. And if I personally want the book, I will back it. If I don't want the book, and there are many reasons why I wouldn't want a book, it's not personal, I won't back it. So the fact that I have this book, that means that the art, the page count, all that kind of stuff, I was already sold on that. I wanted to get it. It comes with what I think is pretty standard right now, which is a trading card and a bookmark. The bookmark feels so strange, but it's very cool artwork. It's done by someone else. What's this name? Jake Romano, something like that. Jake Romano looks cool. I dig it. I'm a little bit more, eclectic with my art preferences. I like a lot of different styles of comic art. I think indie comics appeal to me because of that. I don't need to have straightforward superhero looking art. So I personally liked the art enough, obviously, to back it. Now, the reason why this was such a controversial topic, or this video is waited for, with bated breath by a lot of people, is because I was critical of George's statement that Alterna Comics could publish or should publish their line of comics at home. So buy a printer rather than going to a printer to get the printing done for you. I was also, not all this stuff's public. Some of this stuff goes down in DMs, and it's regardless. It's beside the point. He also thought it was a good idea for me to do. Yeah, so I wanted to talk about the printing quality. So first off, I'm going to get this out of the way right now. $25 for these 2 issues of Mary Sue that were printed at home on a home printer by hand. Was it worth it? I would say if you backed this, you got the product, and you liked the story, then yes, it's absolutely worth it. The print quality, the word that he used was indistinguishable. It's not indistinguishable from a professional printer, and I'll show you why. I'll point out a few things. But the difference is negligible. It does not matter if you got these books printed at home or if they were printed from a professional. At least with the copies that I got, it's fine. Like, I don't have anything that would make me have buyer's remorse other than, again, like interpersonal things that have nothing to do with the comic at all. All right, so what make these comics distinguishable from comics that were made by professional printer? Well, a few things. And I'll say one of those things, and I think the biggest thing is, I watched Dan Fan's review on this, and she went over the story and some of the printing stuff. And I'll tell you, the copies that she got, unfortunately, look like they were in much worse condition than the ones that I got. Now, she mentioned that the front and back cover stuck out more, like the trim was not even with the interior pages. If I line mine up, mine are really, really close. And I would say, about as close as any book you're going to get from a comic shop. So I don't have a problem with the trim of mine as far as that goes. Now, Dan Fan on her book, she also had this page as a double page spread. She had a big white line down the middle, which I don't. The trim or how it was stapled together on mine where the spine is was more correct. So I don't know. I could, if I'm putting on my tinfoil hat, I would say that George made sure to give me 2 really, really good copies of this. Maybe that was the case. Maybe it was the luck of the draw. I kind of felt bad. Dan Fan, do you want these? I almost would, I'd kind of rather you have them if you really like it, but these are very good copies. But quality control and keeping things the same is a big deal. So let me show you the fact that hers were, off by a pretty big margin just by watching her videos. And I just want to make sure you can see this, but I have the tops lined up of these issues, and you can see my issue 1 versus the issue 2, you've got about an eighth of an inch difference on the trim. And so my issue 1 is about an eighth of an inch taller than issue number 2. If I compare it to a Marvel comic, you get actually the same thing. So it's actually the issue 2 was trimmed a little bit closer, almost exactly the same, I would say, just this issue 1 is different. So my concern there would just be repeatability and how can you make it the same. Same thing with Cyberfrog here as well. This first issue is longer. Now, is that a big deal? No, it's not. It fit inside a bag and a board. You're not going to be upset about that. If you like the book again, you're happy with your purchase, it's not a big deal. Okay, another thing is he has this gold box that goes around the title here. And I've got a guess on how this was made. George, if you're watching, I have no idea if you would or not. Let me know in the comments what you did. I'm guessing that this was done by a gold Sharpie. And so it looks almost foily. It's definitely gold. And the reason I'd say that is because the 1 versus 2 is a little different. It's very hand-drawn. With the art of the story, I think it actually works just fine. I don't have a problem with that, but I'm just sort of pointing out anything that looks handmade. Now, this isn't a bad thing for crowdfunding to have something handmade. The problem is to prescribe this to everybody wholesale, I think, is a mistake. This is something very specific. And I would appreciate personally as a backer just to know ahead of time how it's going to be printed and what the form factor is going to be like before you get into it. So I want to point something out to be fair. For the Mary Sue, George pulled in $13,000, just, $13,045 with 331 backers. I don't know how big his print run was for this book, but I can tell you that $13,000 is probably enough to get professionally printed. You could go out somewhere and you could get 2 floppies made. You could, get 500 copies of each. Probably you could do that. What you're not going to get though is you're probably not going to be able to pay your creative team very well because all of the money is going to be going to printing these 2 issues. If this was a single issue and you, made this 1 issue, that brings your costs down significantly. You could take that to a printer, get it printed, and maintain more of a page rate. So I don't know if he felt locked in on doing 2 issues like this, but I will tell you this is definitely more expensive than it would have been otherwise. I also don't know how much the printer cost or anything else, or if he had all of that jazz first. I can only speculate at this point, but I want to give him a little bit of leeway in that it's definitely not enough money to really pay for full color comics like a creative team. If a creative team did this, he was doing it all himself. And so, that's definitely a consideration. And so I'd say before you do a crowdfunding campaign, it'd be important to consider this. I would honestly just make this 1 book. It would have saved a lot of money on printing and shipping, or not shipping, just printing. It would have saved you a lot of money on printing and would have put more money in the pockets of the creators. All right. So something else I mentioned, I always forget to mention this. Okay. So one other thing is the spines. As they were folded, you can see, especially on issue number 1 here, that the ink, I don't know how well you can see that on camera, the ink is flaked off on the spine. This is pretty normal and typical when you're folding. I don't know if it's the paper or the ink that is cheaper. It flakes off, or maybe it's the bone folder or something like that, the process. Regardless, it flakes off. You can see that it has flaked off. Is that going to make me upset if I backed the book and I enjoyed the story? No, absolutely not. If I compare it to Cyberfrog, which was a book that George had some issues with that he went over, the spine is actually completely folded nicely. There's no, at least on my copy, absolutely no flaking or pilling on the ink. I can also compare it to just a random Marvel comic. Same thing, no pilling or flaking along the spine. Now, as far as the story goes, I didn't read the book, and I don't think I'm going to. My wife read the book. I asked her to give her honest opinion just based off the story itself. On a scale from 1 to 10, she gave it a 7. She said it was her second or third favorite comic that she's read. That's pretty high praise. I mean, she hasn't read a ton of comics. I've been really trying to get her into it, and so that's one of the reasons why I got this. So she gave it a 7 out of 10. Now, if I backed the campaign, if I had never been following George on Twitter or any of that, then I would probably most likely back the second campaign for sure. So the moral of the story here that I want to get to is it's about selling hot dogs. Now, I've not been perfect about this. I'm not going to pretend that I have been, especially not regarding this matter. Let me just say it this way. I used to be a relatively big fan of Dan Slott. I've read a lot of Dan Slott's stuff on Spider-Man. I've got his entire run on Superior Spider-Man. I've got the Spider-Verse trade paperback. It's really thick. I enjoyed the video game that he wrote. I played it on the Wii a long time ago, the Spider-Verse thing by Dan Slott. And then when I got on Twitter, Dan Slott, this was about a year ago, he was kind of a jerk to me on Twitter. And that really turned me off. I don't want to buy any more Dan Slott books because of that. I think it's cool if people don't get along, especially creators, especially artists. There's something, I swear, there is something unique about artists, for sure. Not just like physical artists, but any kind of artist. Not getting along is okay. I just have a problem with when there's like enforcement, and social media makes it so easy to do that, to sort of like witch hunt people, put people in public situations where they have to denounce sometimes their friends, I don't know, all the kind of stuff that you see all the time. So this has kind of confirmed to me that YouTube might be a place where you gain interest in your books, and Twitter is the place where you lose it. I really believe that to be true. So one thing I've learned is just to spend less time on Twitter. So overall, who is right about printing at home? I don't know. I think the truth, honestly, is somewhere in the middle. I don't have a problem with the form factor necessarily. Would I have noticed? I mean, I thought it would have probably just been done by a printer that was, I don't know, maybe on the low end. I don't know that I'd be able to tell the difference between digital and offset from two professional printers. And so I think I would know that it was done digitally. That's not a deal breaker. It doesn't really matter at all. The only thing I would say though is I would not recommend this for everybody in every instance. It would have to be something really specific. It's a niche kind of thing, really niche kind of thing. But if you want to do it, if you want to print at home, I mean, it's going to take some work to get good at it, I'm sure. Personally, it's not a battle I want to fight, not a hill that I want to climb, but the product's fine. If you were, I don't feel cheated by paying $25 on this. The real big thing, though, I'd want to be concerned about is just quality control, and that you're able to be consistent in making the books all the same. I would be interested just to see who else backed the book and what, how accurate it was. I just feel bad for Dan Fan that she was super into the story, but my copies are in a much better condition than hers were, at least from what I could see from the video. All right, got through it. Let me know what you thought. I tried to be as honest and upfront about this as I can. If you backed the Mary Sue, I'd be interested to know on your thoughts on, the printing and the story too, if you're interested. Again, I've got enough books to read. I'm probably not even going to read them, I'll be honest. Oh, I gotta say one thing though. I did tell George in private a couple times that I think that he is one of the more talented people in indie comics. I still stand by that. I think he's incredibly talented. I particularly like his color work. Anime style is not my thing, I'll be honest, but I've been open-minded about it because, I backed his first book as well, and I thought he's a talented person. I want to see what he does. So congratulations to George for getting your book out. My only suggestion would just be to work on that hot dog salesman stuff. Anyway, thank you very much, and I will see you later.